The United States just crossed a line. Most people didn't notice. On July 4, while fireworks filled the sky, President Donald Trump signed a bill that quietly pushed U.S. defense spending past $1 trillion. That number should stop you cold. $1 trillion for weapons, for war, for a future being built right now. On the surface, it looks powerful. Missile shields over the homeland, autonomous weapons, new nuclear systems, space dominance. It sounds like strength. It feels like security. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if this isn't a strategy? What if it's a surge without a spine? Because this money does not live in the normal defense budget. It sits outside the system designed to last, outside the machinery that turns spending into enduring power. So before you decide whether this is bold leadership or dangerous illusion, stay with me. If this matters to you, follow the logic to the end. To understand where this is going, we must first understand what problem this bill is actually trying to solve. At its core, this bill is reacting to a fear, a growing one. The fear that America's military edge is eroding faster than its systems can adapt. The Pentagon is facing gaps in munitions, in shipbuilding, in air and missile defense, in space, in nuclear forces. At the same time, warfare itself is changing. Cheaper weapons matter. Autonomy matters. Speed matters. Scale matters. The bill tries to answer all of that at once. With money, a lot of it, more than $150 billion, layered on top of an already massive defense request, pushed through a reconciliation process designed for urgency, not permanence. This is not incremental reform. It is a shock injection. The logic is simple. Flood the system with resources, accelerate innovation, close capability gaps fast. But the structure tells a different story. These funds are temporary, time-limited, detached from long-term sustainment, which raises a deeper question. How did American defense planning reach a point where a one-off surge feels necessary in the first place? To answer that, we have to go backward. For decades, American defense planning followed a rhythm, slow, predictable, built for stability, not speed. Budgets were negotiated annually. Programs stretched across decades. Innovation moved carefully, often too carefully. That system worked when threats moved slowly, but the world changed. Arms control collapsed. China expanded its nuclear arsenal. Russia normalized high-intensity war. Cheap drones rewrote the battlefield in Ukraine. Precision mass replaced exquisite platforms. Yet the budget process stayed the same. Long reviews, fragmented authorities, annual uncertainty. The result was a growing mismatch between how fast technology evolved and how slowly capability could be fielded. By the mid-2020s, the gaps were visible. Stockpiles were thin, shipbuilding lagged, missile defense capacity strained. Nuclear modernization slipped behind schedule and over budget. This bill is not random. It is a response to accumulated delay, a way to bypass friction, to leap ahead instead of inching forward. But history teaches a warning. When you accelerate without redesigning the system, you often create speed without durability. And that tension is about to surface. Then comes the first rupture. Quiet, technical, but explosive in meaning. Defense spending for fiscal year 2026 is split in two. One track is familiar, the base defense budget, slow, reviewed, sustained. The other is not. A massive surge, $156 billion, injected outside the normal system. This is the crisis because money shapes behavior, and temporary money creates temporary choices. Programs accelerate, procurement spikes, new systems are rushed forward, autonomous weapons, low-cost missiles, unmanned ships, AI-enabled systems proven in Ukraine and the Middle East, it feels like momentum. It looks like transformation, but underneath, a clock is ticking. These funds expire. Sustainment is unclear. Follow-on budgets are not guaranteed. So ask yourself this: if you were a commander or a contractor, what would you optimize for? Speed today or survivability tomorrow? If this question matters to you, keep listening, because what looks like innovation may hide a deeper fragility. And to see it, we need to examine the system beneath the surge. Here is the part few people talk about. The mechanism. This bill does not just buy weapons. It bends the system, because when funding sits outside the base budget, it bypasses discipline. Oversight is thinner. Trade-offs are postponed. Hard choices are delayed. The Pentagon calls some of this money a wedge. Flexible funds, minimal constraints, maximum speed. That sounds efficient. It is also dangerous. Why? Because enduring military power is not built on acquisition alone. It requires training, maintenance, supply chains, doctrine. People, none of those scale instantly. So the system does what systems always do under pressure. It prioritizes what can be shown, what can be fielded, what can be counted. Platforms appear, capabilities are announced. Readiness lags quietly behind. This is how short-term success is manufactured. And history is unforgiving here. Capabilities without sustainment decay faster than they deter. We are now set up for a second, sharper moment of truth. The second rupture comes faster and it hits harder, because once the surge is spent, reality returns. Programs built on temporary money collide with permanent costs. Maintenance bills arrive, training pipelines strain, supply chains thin. Unmanned ships need crews on shore. Autonomous systems need updates. Low-cost missiles still need factories running year after year. But the base budget does not automatically grow to meet them. So trade-offs begin. Do you sustain the new systems or protect legacy ones? Do you fund readiness or fund the next breakthrough? This is where momentum breaks. Not with failure, but with friction. Programs slow, innovation stalls, early gains harden into partial capabilities. The danger is subtle. A force that looks modern but cannot scale in a crisis. This is not a hypothetical risk. It is the pattern of every surge that lacks follow-through. And when that pattern reaches ordinary people, the consequences become personal. That is where we go next. Now bring this down to you, to daily life, because defense spending is never abstract. It always lands somewhere. When budgets surge, priorities shift. When priorities shift, trade-offs follow. You feel it indirectly. In taxes debated, in services constrained, in political tension that never quite disappears. But there's something deeper. A military built on stop-and-go funding creates uncertainty. For service members, for families, for communities tied to bases, factories, and supply chains. Training cycles shorten. Deployments stretch. Careers become harder to plan. And when systems are rushed, people carry the risk. Not spreadsheets, not strategies. People, if you want a military that truly protects, it cannot be built like a headline. It must be built like a commitment. If this perspective matters to you, pause here, share it, stay with the argument, because what happens next is not just American, it is global. And the ripple effects are already moving outward. The world is watching this closely. Allies, adversaries, everyone in between, because American defense spending never stays domestic. When the United States surges, others respond. China adjusts its timelines. Russia recalculates risk. Partners in the Indo-Pacific reassess dependence. The investments in space matter here. Missile warning, tracking, command and control. They signal readiness for conflict that moves faster than diplomacy. The nuclear investments matter even more. They arrive as arms control fades, as ceilings disappear, as restraint becomes optional. But here is the global signal that cuts deepest. A surge without permanence tells the world that America knows what must be done, but is unsure it can sustain it politically. That ambiguity invites testing. Not war, pressure, gray zone moves, incremental challenges, moments designed to see whether capability endures or flickers. This is how deterrence erodes. Not with collapse, but with doubt. And once doubt sets in, the future fractures into paths. 3 of them, and none are guaranteed. The first path is the optimistic one. The hard one, Congress absorbs the lesson. Temporary money becomes permanent commitment. Innovation moves into the base budget. Sustainment is funded. Factories stay open. Capabilities mature. The surge becomes a bridge, not a spike. The second path is the familiar one. More likely, some programs survive, others fade quietly. Momentum slows, but does not stop. America remains strong, but uneven. Modern in some areas, hollow in others, a force good enough until it isn't. The third path is the dangerous one. The surge ends, budgets tighten, political attention shifts, programs stall midstream, capabilities age before they mature. Adversaries notice the gap, not because America is weak, but because it hesitated. This is the paradox of power. Strength without continuity breeds vulnerability. Which path emerges will not be decided by technology or even money. It will be decided by whether the United States chooses to treat defense as a system or as a sequence of moments. And that brings us to the final question. Here is the insight that matters most. This bill is not a failure. It is a warning. It shows what the United States can do when urgency breaks inertia. But it also shows the cost of improvisation. Power is not built in bursts. It is built in sequences, aligned budgets, aligned institutions, aligned time horizons. $1 trillion can buy speed. It cannot buy durability on its own. That requires follow-through, boring budgets, sustained attention, political courage after the headlines fade. If you want to understand where American power is truly heading, do not watch the announcements. Watch the base budget, because that is where intentions become commitments. If this analysis sharpened how you see the world, stay here, share it, and join me in the next conversation. Because the real story is not this surge, it's what comes after.